Learn Django by building a simple online marketplace. Django is a Python framework that makes it easier to build websites with Python. Stein with Code from Stein teaches this course. Stein is a very experienced course creator. The project you develop in this course features authentication, communication between users, a dashboard for items, form handling, and more.
In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to build an online marketplace where people can sell and buy new and used items. First, I just want to show you a little demo of the project so you know what we are going to build. Okay, so here you can see the front page of the project we are building. You have a simple menu with a few items. You can go to the inbox, dashboard, you can browse items, and you can create a new one. On the front page, the 6 newest items will be showing, and at the bottom you can see the categories. You will also see how many items that belongs to each of the categories. And if you go to, for example, new item, you should be able to select the category for the item, fill out information like the name, description, price, and add image. On the browse page, you should be able to search in the title and the description of the product, and you can go to categories if you just want to see toys, for example, and you can clear the filters. In the inbox, you should see conversations that you have with other users, and you can go into here and you can talk directly to the owner of an item. You can also go into an item here and click contact seller if you want to do that. On the dashboard you have your items. Here you can edit them and delete them. So if you go into one of these, then you have 2 buttons here, edit and delete. And on the edit page you can just fill out information just like you did when you created it, and you can set here if it was sold or not. I'm going to begin by installing and setting up everything we need, and then build the project piece by piece. I would recommend that you know the basics of HTML before you start this course, because I'm going to focus mainly on Django and a little bit of Tailwind. Okay, let's get started building the project. So, first I go to a command line, and the first thing I want to do here is to set up an environment that Django can work in. Python comes with a built-in virtual environment called Venv, which I'm going to use. Right now I'm inside a folder called Puddle, which is the name of our project. Then to create the environment, I just run the command python 3 -m venv and then the name, which is just env. What this command does is that it creates a virtual environment called env. A virtual environment is an isolated little environment on your computer where you can install Python packages like Django just for this project. This makes it really easy to maintain, deploy, and similar. And now that we have the environment created, we can activate it by running source env bin activate. And then you can see here that the name of the environment is prepended before the project name. And when it's activated, we can install Django by saying pip install Django. This will now install the newest and stable version of Django and a few dependencies that Django has. Great! So the last step of this setup now is to create a Django project, and we can do that by running django-admin start project and then the name, which is Puddle. Great, so let's go into this cd Puddle just to see what files we have there. So we have a manage.py and a Puddle folder. Let me just go to Visual Studio Code, which I'd like to use, where I have opened up this folder with environment and the Django project. So this manage.py file is sort of a script for running administrative tasks like updating the database structure, adding super users, running the development server, and similar. Plus you have another folder here with the same name of the project. asgi.py and wsgi.py are entry points for the web server, and you don't have to think about these files at this moment. These are when you're going to deploy a project to a live server. And then you have settings.py, which is kind of like a global configuration for the whole project. Here we have secret keys, installed apps, and where templates are located, information about the database, how we want the password to be structured and similar. And the last file is the urls.py. This is a file that can be thought of like a table of contents for the whole project. So this area will link the URL to a specific view. So I'm not going to explain these files more right now. It's easier to do that when we start using them, so you have some context. Okay, let's go back to the command line, and then we can run the Django development server just to see that everything is okay. And to run this, we just say python manage.py run server. Then we can see here that we get the warning. I will come back to this later. Right now we can just copy this address and go to a browser. I like to use Google Chrome. And then just paste it here. Then you can see here the install worked successfully. Congratulations. Nice. So now that we have everything up and running, we can create our first Django app. A Django app is a folder with some files. It's used to separate the views, templates, database models, and similar for a specific part of a project. For example, the pages like the homepage, contact, about, and similar will each be stored in one Django app, but we will also have one app for conversations and one app for items and so on. But we will come back to this later. Right now I just want to focus on the front page. So I want to begin by creating a new Django app called core. And to do that I need to go back to the command line, stop the web server, and then say python manage.py. See here that we use this file now. Start app and then core. And this will now create a new folder with a few files. So we can see that we have it here. We have the migrations, which is information about the database. This is generated by Django, so you don't have to think about it right now. Admin.py is where we register the database models to be used inside the Django admin interface. Apps.py is like a configuration file, but just for this specific app. Models.py is where we define database models, like information about what we want to store for an item, for example, the title, description, price, and similar. Tests.py is where we can run automated tests and similar for this app. And views.py is where we define views for the app. So it can be a bit hard to understand what all these files do, but I promise you that you will get a better understanding of them when we start using them. And now that we have created this app, it's almost ready to be used. We just need to tell Django that the app exists and that we're going to use it. So if you go back to settings.py, you can see here that we have a little segment called installed apps. We have a few of these built-in apps here already. And then at the bottom, we can add core. And the functionality that comes from these built-in apps is something that most Django sites used at some point. For example, you have the admin interface where you log in and can add data to the project. We have one for handling sessions, one for handling authentication, and similar. I will come back to a few of these later in this video. So, since we now have added core here, Django knows that this exists and is going to be used. So, then we can begin setting up the front page. So if I just close this and find views.py, we can create our first view. So def index, then we pass in a parameter called request. This is information about the browser, your IP address, if it's a get or post request, and similar. So this has to be put in on all views that we use. And then we just want to render a template very quickly by saying return render. Then we pass in the request parameter, so this will now be available inside the template. And then the template we're going to use, which is core/index.html, and save. So this is how simple a view can be. And now that we have the view, we can create the template. So inside the core folder, create a new folder called templates. Django will automatically look for a folder called templates inside all of the registered apps in the installed apps section. And then inside the templates folder, I want to create one more folder called core. This refers to the core from the view we just created, so this folder. So Django automatically finds this folder, and then it will find the core index file in here. And then in here we can just create a new file called index.html, and this should look something like this. So we add the doc type HTML, the HTML tag, the head, and then here we can set up the meta charset UTF-8, and then we can set up the viewport, meta name viewport content. This is so that the page can be mobile friendly. Width equals device dash width, and initial dash scale is 1.0. And then I want to include Tailwind as a CDN. So script src https://cdn.tailwindcss.com, and then we can just close this tag right like that. Now we can add a title to the page. Title puddle, close this one, title, close the head, create a body tag, and then in here I can say div class px6 py6, get some space in here, and h1, the front page. Then we can close the h1, close the div, close the body, and close the HTML, and save. So the last step now is to add this to the urls.py file. So if I just open up the folder here again and find puddle urls.py, then we can import the view we just created. So from core.views, import index. Then we can add it to the top of the URL patterns path. Set the path to be empty since this is the front page. And then we want to use the view called index. And we can set the name for this to be index. And save. So if I now go back to here again, then I can run the server, go back to Chrome and refresh. And now I'm at the front page, and we can see here that I have space above and on the sides, and this is now H1 from Tailwind. Nice. Okay, so now that we have all of this, we can create a new page, a page for the contact information. But let's begin by fixing up the front page a little bit first, because right now all of this code is inside index.html file. I want to move most of the code into a new file called base.html, which the index.html file should extend. This way we can reuse the code for more templates throughout this project. So inside the same folder as index.html, we can create a new file called base.html. Great. So here I can actually just copy all of the code from the index.html, copy this and paste it here. And then save this. Actually, I can take this, cut it out, save, and then in the index.html file, to now extend the base file, we can say extends core/base.html. Then below here, I just paste this title. So now this will make sure that we extend the base.html file, but the content is missing. So if I go to the browser and refresh, the title is gone. So we need to introduce something called a code block. So let's go back to base.html and add it inside this div here. So block content and close it and block. This will not help yet, but if I copy this, go back to HTML, index.html, wrap it around the content here, then we make sure that everything we put in here will be rendered automatically in here by Django. So if I now refresh, you'll see that the title is gone, but the content from here, this doesn't have to be inside all of the templates. Nice. So let's add one more code block to the base.html file for the browser's tab title. So in here, you can say block title, and then and block space, and then we pipe it like that. So then on the index.html file, we create the same code block, block title, and now we can say welcome here, and block. And then welcome will automatically be put here in front of the pipe puddle. So if I now refresh, it will say welcome puddle. Nice. Great, so now we can continue to the contact page. Let's begin with the view. So in views.py, we create a new view, def contact, pass in the request parameter, return render request core/contact.html, and save. Then we can create a template. So let's just copy everything from index.html, create a new file where we paste this, and save it as contact.html in the same folder. Then we can rename the title of the page to contact, and then the contact page. And then we need to add this to the URLs also. So let's begin by importing it, contact, and then path, contact, and remember to end this with a slash. Now we pass in contact here, set the name to be contact, and the name we put in here will make it easier to reference this URL later in the project. So if I now go to the browser, just manually go to contact, then you will see that we are on the contact page. Perfect. Before we dive deeper into Django, I just want to add a menu and a footer. So let's go back again to base.html and add it there. So base.html, and then above here add a new nav class py6 px6 flex, because we want items to be next to each other, justify dash between, so that all space is put between the logo and the links, if you remember from the demo. And then items center, so that the links is on the same height as the logo. And then we want the border on the bottom, 1 pixel, so border dash B for border bottom. And the color for the border can be border dash gray 200. And then close the navigation bar like that. And then on the left side we want logo, so href slash, we add a class to this, text dash xl, and we want the font to be semi-bold, so font semi-bold puddle. So let me save now, go to the browser and see if this is correct. Yes, so then we have a navigation bar here, which is white with the border on the bottom, and then the logo to the left here. Nice. And then I want some items on the right side here. So then I need to create a new div, div class space dash x6, and this will automatically now add a space between each of the items I put in here. So first I'm going to begin with a new item link, href. This can just be empty for now. Class text dash xl, text lg, font semi-bold, and when we hover this, I want this to be gray, so hover colon text dash gray 500 new item. So let me see if this looks good. Yes, so now it's put here on the right side, and when I hover it, it becomes gray. Nice. So let me copy this to make a browse link. Browse. And then I want a sign up button and a login button. So this looks a little bit different. So I just want to create a new element. href can just be empty for now. Class. And this I want to have some padding, so px-6 and py3. Text can also be LG, and the font can be semi-bold, just like up here. But I want this to have a background, so bg teal 500, this is a dark green color. And then I want to set the text to be white. I want the corners for the button to be rounded, so I can add the rounded -xl. And when we hover this, I want the background to be a little bit darker green. So hover BG Teal 700. And then we add the title, sign up. If I now make a copy of this, we can do the same thing for the login, except I want this to be gray 500 and gray 700 when we hover this. Then just replace the title with login and save. So if I go back now, refresh, we have the new item, browse, and then these two with the hover functionality. Great. And then I want a very simple footer here as well. So the nice thing is now that but before I go there, I just want to show that this comes from the base.html file. So if I go to the front page, the menu is there as well. That's what's so nice about the extensions. So let's go back to base.html and create the footer. So below this div, you can add footer, footer class, py-6, px-6, flex, justify between, just like up in the menu. And we can set the background to be BG gray 800, so it's a dark gray color. Now we can close this. And then in here on the left side, I want information about the project. Div class w-2/3, so this will take up 2/3 of the footer. Padding right can be set to 10. Close this one. And then in here I want the title, so h3 class mb-5 font semi-bold, and this can be text gray 400 about. So we can save this now, see what this looks like. Refresh. Yes, so we have the dark footer and then the title. And then below here I want just a little bit of random text, some lorem ipsum. So p class text lg text gray 500 lorem ipsum blah blah blah. So just copy and paste and close the paragraph. Nice. So then we have a little bit information about the project here. Then on the right side I want one more menu where we can link to the about page, the contact, privacy, terms of use and similar. So here with a div class w1/3. This doesn't need any padding. And then here we had just make a copy of this title, same menu instead. And then I want to use a UL for the menu. So UL class space -y-2. So each of the elements in here have some space between them. Close the UL and then li. href can just be empty for now. Class text lg text teal 500, so it's a green color. And when we hover this, I want this to be a little bit darker green color. So text teal 700 about. Close the link and close the li. So let's see what this looks like now. Then you have the menu here. Nice. So let's add a few more elements here. We name this the contact. Oops. Privacy. And then we have the terms as well. Terms of use. Privacy policy to be correct. Nice. So if I refresh now, we have the menu and everything we need. So now I just want to activate this link here. And let me go back here. And then I want to use a code called URL. And then we just pass in contact. And then Django will automatically use this URL function to find contact here and give us this URL. So if I refresh now, click this one, then I'm sent to the contact page. Nice. By the way, if you want to learn even more Django from me, then check out my channel CodeWithStein. You can find a link in the description below. Great. Now that we have the core app with a few pages, it's time to start working on the categories and the items. And for this we need one more Django app. So go to the command line, stop the web server, then say Python manage.py start app item. I want both of the categories and the item to be located in this app. So then we need to register this with Django. So let's go back to settings.py and add it in the list here. Save, and we can close this. So I want to begin with the categories, since this is the simplest database model. So if I just open up the browser here again, find the item models.py, then we can create a new database model by saying class category, pass in models.model, just so Django knows what we are using. And the categories should only have one field, which is the name. So name equals models.char field. And we need to set the max length there. We can set this to 255, so we don't have any limitations. So then, when we created a database model, we need to update the database by going to the command line and say Python manage.py make migrations. So now you can see here that migrations for item, we want to create a new model called category. And if I open up the migrations folder, then we have a new file here. Then you can see here what this is going to do. So it's going to create a new table called category with the ID field and the name field. So now that we have done this, we just need to tell Django to actually execute this script. And that's very easy. We just have Python manage.py migrate. So now you can see here that it created it down here, the item.001, and also a few other database tables. This is from the authentication and similar that Django comes with. Now this warning should also be removed. So to make it possible to add data or categories to the project, we need to log into the admin interface. And to do this, we need a user. So let's create one. Python manage.py create super user admin at puddle.com, and then a password. Then the super user created successfully. So now we can run the web server again, try to log in. So if I just copy this, go to a new tab, /admin, then I need to log in with the user I just created. Okay, so now you can see here that we have the authentication and authorization. We have users, where is the admin user I just created, but the category model isn't here, even though the database should have it already. But we need to just tell Django that we want the database table to show in the admin interface. So if we go to item and admin.py, then we can first begin by importing the category model here. So from .models import category, and I can say .models because this admin.py file is in the same folder as models. And then to register it, we just say admin.site.register, pass in the category. So if I now go back and refresh, the item app appeared here, and we have the categories database table here. Nice. Let's try to add a few. If I just click add, I can add toys, I can add furnitures, I can add clothes, and save. So if you see here now, I see two things that I just want to fix. First of all, categories is misspelled. That's because Django just automatically adds an S to the end of the app name, but this should end in IES. And the same here, category object 3 doesn't tell me anything about what this actually is. So we need to set the string representation for this class. So if I just go back to the models.py, we can begin with the category's name. So class meta, and then we say verbose name plural categories, and save. If I refresh now, you can see here that this is now spelled correctly. And then I want to show the name of the category here. So then we need to override the string representation. So def str self return self.name. So I just want to show the name, the value from here. So if I now refresh, you see clothes, furniture, and toys. Nice. Last thing I just want to do now is to order this by name. And this is also done in the meta, which is kind of options for or configurations for the model. So ordering name. And since this is a tuple, we need to add a comma here, since this is iterable. So refresh, then everything looks great there. Nice. And then I want to go to the next database model, which is the item model. So below here we can say class item, pass in models.model. I want this to have a name as well, so I can just copy this, paste it, and I want a description, so description equals models.text field. So this is now expected to be much longer than 255 characters. That's why I want to use a text field and not a char field. I can set the blank equals true and null equals true in case the user doesn't want to provide a description for the project. And then I want a price for the price field. So price equals models.float field. And I want a boolean field to mark if it's sold or not. So is sold equals models.boolean field. Default should be just set to false. And I want to know when this was created. So created at equals model.datetime field. And I just want to add this automatically. So then I can just add here auto now add equals true. And then Django will handle this for us. But I also want to know who created this. So created by equals models.foreign key. Now this is an index in the database between this item and the user. For example, the admin user. So here I can pass in the user, which I will import very soon. And then I need to set something called the related name to items. So it's very easy to get all of the items belonging to a specific user. And then the last parameter that we need here is the onDelete models.cascade. So if a user is deleted, all of the items will also be deleted. So now we can see here that I get an error because user is not defined. So I need to import it up here from django.contrib.auth.models import user. And then the warning is now gone. Also, I want one more foreign key up to the category. So category equals models.foreign key. Pass in the category. And then we can set the related name here also to items. And on delete models.cascade. So if you delete a category, all of the items belonging to that category will also be deleted. So the last field I want to add now is the image. So, for example, below the price, we can just say image equals models.image field. Then I want to specify where on the server I want this to be uploaded. So upload to item images. And then Django will create this folder for us if it doesn't exist. Blank equals true and null equals true in case the user doesn't want to provide an image. So if I now save, we can go and update the database again. So just go back to the terminal, stop the web server. Then we can see here that I can't use the image field because Pillow is not installed. And to solve this, I just need to run this command. So pip install Pillow. And Pillow is a Python library for handling images like resizing, saving them and similar. So now that this is done, I can run the make migration script again. And you can see here that I changed the meta option for the category and I want to create a new model called item. And then just Python managed by migrate. So the last step then, or the next step, is to register this in the admin interface again. So import item and admin.site.register item and save. So if I now go here and refresh. Okay, sorry, I need to run the server again, of course. Refresh, and then I have the items here. But before I can create anyone, I just need to do some configuration for the images. So if I go to the settings.py, scroll down, we find something called static files. This is, for example, CSS files and similar, as you can see here. But I need to do the same thing for the media files. So media URL should be media slash, and then where the root folder for the media files should be. So media root equals base dir slash media. So now this will create a media folder inside the root folder of the project. This variable is defined at the top here and is just the root folder for the project. So now we can try to add a few of these. So if I click add item, then I select the categories, the toys, for example, teddy bear. This is the description, and then the price, for example, $100, and then an image. Then I can select the teddy bear, and this is created by admin. So then I can click save and add another one to create one more. And the clothes, and then jacket, blah blah blah, just add some random information. And then select an image. Okay, it's shoes that I have here, so shoe 1. And this is also created by admin. So now we can see here that I have the same string representation problem here. I just want to fix that before I do anything more. Just copy this, paste and save, refresh, and then we see the name of the item. So if I now go back to Visual Studio Code, you can see here that we got a new folder called media. And then Django created a new folder called item images, and in there the images is uploaded. Nice. So now I want to show the newest products from the database on the front page. So let's find core views.py. Then we need to import the database models here. So from item.models import category, because I want to show these as well, and item. And then I can get the 6 newest products here. Same items equals item.objects.filter is sold equals false, because I don't want products that is sold. And to get 6, I can just say 6 like this, 0 to 6. And then to get all of the categories, you can say categories equals category.objects.all. And then to pass them in and to be able to use them in the template, we need to add a context here. So comma, categories, pass in categories, and items. So now these here 2 points up to these. Nice. Okay, so then we can begin by showing the items. So in the index.html, you can just remove this one and create a new div. Div class margin top 6, so we have some space up to the menu. px-6, py12, pg gray 100, rounded-xl. Close that div, and then in here I want to add a title, so h2 class mb12 text 2 times xl text center, and then the title newest items, and save. So let's go to the front page just to see that it looks okay. Yes, newest items, and then I have a box here to show the items in. So here I want to have a grid where I show 3 and 3 items. So below the title I can create a new div, class grid calls 3 because I want to add 3 columns, and then gap 3, which is the space between each of the items. And then in here I want to loop through the items that we provided in the view. That is these ones, which is a list of items, and we can just say for item in items. Close this one, and for And then we create an element here, div. Just close it, and href. Just close that one as well. It can just be empty for now. And then we can show the image on the top. So div. And then img src item.image.url. Now this will give us the full absolute URL to the image. Class rounded top XL. So the top of the image will have rounded corners. And then below here I want to show the name and the price. So div class p6. So I have padding on the side and on the top and bottom. I want the background to be white and rounded BXL. So the bottom of this div will be rounded corners. And then here we have a h2 for the title. Text to XL item.title. Now I can close that one. And below here I want to show the price. P class text gray 500 price item.price and close. So if I now save this, we should see a loop of the project, the products we have added. Okay, the name isn't there because it's name and not title, sorry. So now I have the teddy bear, price 100, shoe, price 50. Nice. But the image is missing. And this is because that Django really doesn't handle media image for us. But since we are just in development, now we can do a little hack or use Django for this, but in production you should never do this. So inside urls.py we can import two new things. From django.conf import settings, and from django.conf.urls.static import static. And then at the bottom here we can add this plus static settings dot media URL. So now this points to the URL that we set in the settings.py, and the document root to find these files is settings.media root, and save. So if I now go back and refresh, the images is loaded. Nice. And then below the newest images I want to show the categories just like in the demo. So let's go back to the template and make a copy of this and just paste it below here. And instead of saying newest items, we say categories. Then I can close this div and I can close that div. And then in here I want to loop through the categories. So for category in categories and for, and then I can actually copy most of this and just paste it in here. But the categories doesn't have image, so let's remove that. And the categories doesn't have price, but we can show how many products or items is in here. So to do that we can create a function, or we can just say category.items.count and items. So I think this should be correct. 1 items, 0 items, 1 items. But this should of course be category.name. So now we have clothes, 1 items, furniture, 0 items, toys, 1 items. Nice. So now we have a working front page for this project. Next step now is to make it possible to go into the detail page of an item. So let's begin with the view for this. This view should be in the item views.py. So here we can say def detail, pass in the request parameter, but since we want to find the detail of an item, we need an ID or a primary key for this. So let's add one more parameter here, pk for primary key. And then to get this from the database, we say item equals get object or 404. So now Django will give us a 404 error if this object doesn't exist in the database. And we want to get this item from the item model, where the primary key is primary key. So this is now the primary key on the model itself, and this is the one we get from the URL. So you can see here that I get 2 warnings because I haven't imported this shortcut. This can be together with render, and I need to import this model. So from.models import item. So now the warning is gone. Now we can return and render the template. So return render request, pass in item/detail.html, and then the context, which is item, and save. So the next step then is to create the folders and this template. So here, create a new folder, templates, and item, and detail. So detail.html. And this should also extend the base.html. So extends core/base.html. I want to have the title here, so block title. And then in here we can show the name of the item, so item.name. And then just close this block and block. And then the block for the content, block content and block. So then in here I want to have a grid I want to show, and then in here I want to have a grid because I want to have the image on the left and then information about the item on the right side. So div class grid calls 5 and gap can be set to 6. And then on the left side we have the image, so div class call dash span 3 because I want to take up 3 of the available 5 columns. Img src item.image.url class rounded pixel because I want the image to have rounded corners. So before I add anything more here, I just want to see what this looks like. So the next step then is to import this into the URLs file. I want to have a separate URLs file for the items because this is a much cleaner way to do this. So here I want to create a new file, urls.py. And then we first need to import path. So from Django.urls import path. And we can import all of the views for the item. So from dot import views and URL patterns path. And when this has an integer primary key, we want to use the views.detail view. The name can be detail. So this now expects an integer called primary key or pk, and this pk has to be the same as we set there. Detail might be a little bit confusing now, so I want to import or implement something called app name here. App name item, and I will show you very soon how this works. This will now be a namespace for this app. Then I just need to import this URLs file to the main URLs file. So in puddle URLs, at the top here is a path, items, include item.urls, and this points to the URL file we just created. And I get the warning here because you need to import this together with path. And then all URLs that begins with item will automatically go into this and check if there is a path with the primary key there. Nice. So the last thing we can do now before we test this is to go into index.html, and activate the link here. So URL, then we provide item, which is the namespace or the app name, detail, and then we provide the primary key by saying item.id. Save. So now Django will fix this URL for us. So if I click this now, teddy bear, you can see that I'm sent into the detail page for the teddy bear, and you can see the teddy bear name up there. Great. So now I want to show some information on the right side here, like the name, the price, who is selling this, the description, and similar. So let's go back to the detail.html, create a new div, class, call span -2, close that div. Actually, I want some more classes here, like p-6 and bg gray 100 and rounded-xl. And then the first element in here I want to add is an h1 class mb-6 text 3xl, and then item.name, close the h1. Let's see what this looks like. Yes, you have the gray box here with the title. Nice. So now let's add the price and who's selling this. So p class text gray 500 strong price item.price and close the paragraph. If I just make a copy of this, we can rename the title here to seller, and then item.created by .username. So this will give us the username for the person who added this. So 100, and the seller is admin. Below here I want to show the description for the item. So p class text gray 700, so it's a little bit darker, strong, and then class, you can have a text gray 500, and this description, close the strong, add the br for line break, and then item.description, close that one and save. Nice. So I only want to show this description or this title if there is an actual description, so we can test that up here. If item.description. So now this will only be rendered if the user filled in a description for the item. So let's close this and if, like that. And then below here I can have a button which we will activate later. href class inline block margin top 6. We can have space on this, padding x6 and py3. The text can be large and the font can be semi-bold. And the background can be bg teal-500. Text can be set to white. And if we hover this, we want the background to be darker. So hover bg teal-700. And we can also have rounded corners. So rounded-xl. And then the title, contact seller. So we will come back to this and activate it later. But let's make sure it's looking good. And it does. Nice. Then below here, I just want to show the related products or items. So if there are more products in the same category. So let's add one toy car. Blah blah blah. Toy car created by admin, and then I want this to be showing at the bottom here. So let's first make some changes in the view, because here is where we get the related items. Related items equals item.objects.filter, and then I want to get all of the items in the same category as this one. So category equals item.category, and I want to filter out the ones which is set to sold. So is sold is still false, and I want to exclude this item from the list. So dot exclude pk equals pk. And I only want to have 3, so 0:3 to split it. And then we just need to append this related items list like this and save. And then to show this, I just want to loop through and show them just like we do on the front page. So just copy this entire div here and paste it below this grid at the bottom. But instead of saying item in items, you can say related items and replace the title with related items and save. So let's see what this looks like. Related items, and then I have the toy car here. If I go into this, the teddy bear will be a related product. Nice. Great. So now that I have the basic browsing for this project, I want to make it possible to sign up. So I can begin by creating a new file in the core app. So in the core app is where I want all of these views to be located. Let me just close a little bit of this. And then in the core app, I want to create a new urls.py file to clean up a little bit. Now we can import path again. So from Django.urls import path. And from .import views. So I import all of the views belonging to this app also. Now we set app name to be core. Now we set up the URL patterns. We can begin with empty one, path, empty, views.index, and the name is also index. And we can also add about there, so or contact or whatever we created. So if I just go to puddle URLs, now we have this contact. So let me move this in here and say views.contact and save. So now I can remove this from there, and when the URL here is empty, I want to use the include statement here as well. So include core.urls. So now it will loop through all of the paths here before it continues and tests with the items. So then I don't need to import these here anymore. But if I now save and go here and refresh, I will get an error on this one in the footer, because now this doesn't exist anymore. So let me open up base.html and rename this to core:contact, since I added app name here. So if I refresh now, everything is back as it was. Okay, so let's continue with signing up a user. So inside the core app, I want to create one more file called forms.py. So Django helps us with creating users, validation, and similar. Let's first import forms from Django. So from Django import forms. And we can import a user creation form from django.contrib.auth.forms import user creation form. And I need to import the database model for the user. So from django.contrib.auth.models import user. And then we can create it here. So class sign up form. Now we pass in the user creation form, which we imported up here. And then we need to do some configurations. So class meta. We need to set the model we're going to use, which is user, that comes from Django. And then I want to specify which fields I want the user to fill out. So fields equals username. I want them to fill out the email, password 1, and password 2, which is the repeat password. So let's save this for now. And then we can create the view where we are going to show this form. So inside the views.py, we can import the form we just created from .forms import sign up form. And then we create the view. So at the bottom here, we can say def sign up, pass in the request parameter. And then we can create an instance of the form. Form equals sign up form. Whoops. And then we say return render request. Then the template, which is core/signup.html. Then we just need to pass the form into the front end. So form like this. And save. Then we need to create the template before we can test this. So signup.html. I want this to extend the base as well. Whoops. Extends core/base.html. I want to set a block title, sign up, and block. Okay, I have a double there. Block content, and close this one, and block. And then in here we can begin with a box around the form. Div class w1/2, which just fills out half of the screen. my6, so we have space above and below this button box, and mx-auto, so it's centered on the screen. I want the background to be PG gray 100 and have rounded corners. Close that one. Then we can have a title h1 class mb-6 text 3xl sign up. So before I add anything more here, we can test that this is working. So let's go to urls.py to show to edit here. Path sign up /views.signup, and the name is sign up. Now we can update the menu so this links to the correct page. So that is the first link here. URL core:signup and save. So if I go back now, refresh, click sign up, then we have this box that fills out half of the screen and is centered. Looks like I forgot to add some padding to this box. So let's go here and say p-6, save, refresh, and now it looks a little bit better. Then below here we can show the form. So let's go back here, create a form element, form method, should be set to post action dot, which is the same page we are on. And since we are using a post request, we need to add something called a CSRF token. This is security built in with Django to prevent cross-site request forgery, I think it's called. Now we can render the form by saying form.sp, and then we have a button. So button class py4 px8, text can be large, the background can be teal 500, and when we hover this it can be darker, so bg teal 700. And I want the corners to be rounded XL and the text to be white. Then we can just set the title to be submit and close the button. Save, go back and refresh. Then we have the form here, which doesn't look very good, but we can try to customize this so it looks a little bit better. So if I then go back here, just remove this. This is the easiest way to show the form. Then we can first make sure that if there are errors that are not connected to the fields, we show them here by saying form.nonfield errors. Then we can add a div class mb-3, and in here we have a label for the username. Label class inline block margin bottom 2 username, close the label, and then form.username, close that div. If I save it now, refresh, we just have the username. It looks a little bit better, but I will make it even better. Let's add a BR here. Then we can copy this, paste it for the email, and form.email, And the same with the password. So password, form.password1, and the repeat password, repeat password, password 2, and save. Refresh. So now the form looks a little bit better. We will fix more styling. I just want to make sure that we print out more errors down here if there are any. So if form.errors or form.non-field errors, then we can close this by saying and if there are any, we create a new div class mb3, padding 6 in all direction. The background can be bgred 100, rounded XL, div, and then we just loop through the images here and the errors. We need to loop through them by saying for field in form, field.errors. Then we close this and and I just want to move this down there. Sorry, it shouldn't be up there. Paste and save. So if I now refresh, it looks doesn't look any different, and I can't submit it yet. But let's fix the rest of the styling here, which is done inside the user creation or the sign up form. So let's go back to forms.py. Then we need to do some changes here. So the username, let's begin with that. Username equals forms.char field. Then we set something called widget equals forms.text input. Then we set attributes, attrs equals, create a dictionary, placeholder, your username. Let's save this, see if it works. Yes, now we have a placeholder there. Now we can add some classes to it as well. So class w-full py4 px6 and rounded xl. Nice. So now this looks much better. Let's do this for the other 3 fields as well. Email, and this should be an email input. So Django will validate it for us. Your email address, and then password 1. This should be a password input. Your password, I can just copy this, so password 2, and then repeat password and save. So if I now go back and refresh, the form looks much better. Still nothing happens if I try to submit this, so I need to do some more changes in the views.py. Here I need to check if the user has submitted, and to do that I say if request.method is post, then I know that the form has been submitted. So then I can create a new instance of the form by saying form equals signup form and pass in request.post, which is all of the information from the form. And then I can check if it's valid. So if form.is valid, then I can say form.save, and then the user will be created in the database. And when that is done, we can redirect the user to the login page. That doesn't exist yet, so we can just say return redirect /login. Then we will get a 404 error, but we'll fix it later. And if it's not a post request, then we just use the empty form like that. Now I get a new warning here because we haven't imported this. So let's import it up here together with render. So if I now refresh, try to submit a sign up here. So then I was redirected to the login there. Nice. But it means that it was working. So if I now go to users, I will have a CodeWithStein, the email and the password. You can see here that user is active, but it's not status staff and it's not a super user. That means that I cannot log in into the admin interface with its user. Only super users can do that. So now we have the possibility to sign up a user. Then we can make it possible to log in a user. So I can begin by creating the form. So if I just go to forms.py, we're going to still be using an authentication form from Django. So where we import this, we can also import authentication form. And then we can create it at the top here, doesn't really matter. Class login form, authentication form. And then here I want to override the fields for the username and the password. So I can copy this, paste it, and the password. Here it's just called password and not password1, but besides this, it's completely same. So I don't need a view for this because I'm just going to use a login view that Django comes with. So if I now just go to url.py, I can begin by importing this from Django. So from django.contrib.auth import views. Now this will crash with this one, so we need to rename this by saying as auth views. Then I can append it here, path login slash, and then the view we're going to use, which is now authviews.loginview.asView, like that. And then we set the name to be login. But now I need to specify that we are going to use the form we created here. So we need to import it here from .forms import login form. So I can just say authentication form equals login form. So if I now just go to base.html, I can import this, fix this here, URL core login, save. So now we can try to use it. Okay, so now I get a template does not exist error because this doesn't exist, but this is still not the file we are going to use. So I need to update here to tell Django which files to use. Template name is core/login.html, and this will look very similar to the sign up file. So just copy everything, create a new file and save it as login.html. Here I don't need the repeat password. This should be called form.password, and I only need the username and the password. So then I can just fix the title, log in and save. Django automatically calls a form for form. That's why I don't need to rename this, and everything should now be working. So let's go back, refresh, and now we see the login form. So now I can try to log in with the user I created, CodeWithStein, and then my password. So now I was automatically redirected to something called accounts/profile. This doesn't exist, and we are not going to use it either. It's just the default URL that Django tries to redirect you to. So we can override this by going to settings.py, setting something called login, redirect URL. So you can be sent to the front page when you are logged in. And we can set something called login URL, login. So if you try to visit a page you don't have access to, you will be redirected to this URL. And we can also set logout redirect URL while we're still here to the front page. So when you log out, you will be sent to the front page. So if I just remove this, now it doesn't look like we are authenticated. I want to hide these two buttons when we are authenticated and show an inbox button and a dashboard button instead. So let me go to base.html, and then above here you can say if request.user.isAuthenticated, Then I want to show 2 buttons, else then we can show these 2. So let me close this and if and save. So if I go back and refresh, those 2 buttons are now gone. And that's because the request user is authenticated. There is always a user, and if it's not authenticated, it's an anonymous user. So then I can make a copy of these 2 buttons. Just paste it in there. Then the first one can be inbox and the other one can be dashboard. Then they can just be empty for now. Save, go back and refresh. Now we have the inbox and the dashboard button instead. Nice. Okay, so now I want to make it possible to add items for the users. So we can begin by creating a new form for this. So if I just go back to the editor and find the app for this, the item, and then create a new file here for forms.py. Then I can begin by importing forms from Django. From Django import forms, and I want to import the database model item. So from .models import item. Then I can create the form class new item form and pass in forms.modelForm. I can set the class meta so we can do some configurations. We want to set the model to be item, and the fields we want here is category, and we want the name, the description, the price, and the image. Great, so then we can save this for now. We will come back to the styling in a little while. But now we can go to the views.py to create the view for this. So def new request, and I want this to be, I want Django to require that you are logged in to access this here. So to do that, you can add something called a decorator. So let's begin by importing this from django.contrib.auth.decorators import login required. And then to apply that to this view, we just say at login required. So if you now try to visit this without being authenticated, you will be redirected to the front page. No, sorry, to the login page. And then here we can say form equals new item form. We just need to import this from .forms import new item form. And then we can say return render request, pass in the template name, which here should be item/form.html. Because I want to reuse this for the edit as well. Then we can pass in the form here, form, and form, and save. And when that is done, we can create the template. So just open up here again, and then inside the item folder, create new called form.html. So here we can begin by extending the template, extends core/base.html. Then we set up the title, block title, new item. No, sorry, actually here I want to pass in a variable called title. You might wonder where this is coming from, and I will show you. And the block in views here, we can append it there, title, new item. Because then we can do the same with the edit view. We just say edit, edit item. So when that is done, you can go down here, create a block content. Just close it. And then in here we can begin with the title, h1 class, mb-6, text 3xl. And then the value here should also be title, which will be new item. And then we can set up the form. Form method should be post. The action can be the page we are on. And here we also need to set something called the enc type to multipart/form data. And this is needed to be able to upload images. And then here we add the CSRF token. And then we can say div class space -y4 to have space between all of the fields. and then just form.sp. We can close this one, and then I want to show the errors here. I just want to copy that from the sign up form, because this is identical, or the login form, that doesn't matter. Let me just copy this, go back and paste it here, and then below here we can have the button, which is also the same as in the sign up or login. So just copy this, go back and paste it, and then I just want to close the form element. Okay, you should be there like that. I think everything is okay here now. Last step then is to import this to the URLs page. So here you can add this above here, path new views dot new item. Isn't that what I called it? No, just new. Okay. And then we set the name to be new. Like that. Great. So if I now save, then I can go to the menu in base.html to add a button here. So we can have this together with these two, the inbox and the dashboard. Can have it first here. URL should go to item : new, like that, and then we can rename the title of the link to new item and save. So if I now go back and refresh, I should have a new, okay, I already had this, of course, so I don't need the button there. Sorry, but okay, sorry, let me just copy this and paste it there, because it should be on that link. It doesn't need a separate button. So save again, refresh, and if I click this now, I will be redirected to the login page because I wasn't logged in. So let me log in with CodeWithStein and then my password. Let me try to click it again, new item, and then I have the form here. Nice. So then I just want to fix the styling for this. So if I go back to forms.py, I can add it here. I can do it a little bit differently here than the other places, just so you see another way we can do this. So widgets, widgets equals, and then create a dictionary, category, forms.select, and then I want to set the attribute, so attrs, create a new dictionary, class, w full, py4, px6, rounded -xl, and border, and save. So we can see if this is working. That did not work. Okay, so I need to have this inside the meta class, of course. So save this now, refresh, and then I have the styling there. Nice. Then I can do the same thing for the other, just that I want to have this as a variable. So up here I can say input classes equals, paste it. And then I can say input classes like that, so I don't have to repeat this multiple times. And this is still working. Nice. So then I can copy this, just add a comma here, replace this for name, and then forms.text input, like that. And the same with the description. This should be a forms.text area. And then the price, which should be text input. And the last one, image, which is the file input. So then I can save this now, go back and refresh, and now the styling here is also working. Perfect. I want some space between these two, by the way, so this should have an empty 6. That's better. Great. So then the last thing we need to do now is to add a check if this form is submitted, and similar, just like we did in the sign up. So in the views.py, here we can say if request.method is post, then form equals new item form, and here we need to pass in request.post and also request.files, so we get the files that the user uploads. And then we can say if form.isValid, but instead of saying just form.save here, we need to do some changes. Here we can say item equals form.save and pass in commit equals false, because if we try to save to the database now, the created by field is not added. Therefore we will get an error if we try to do this. That's why we need to set commit false, so this will just create an object but not save it in the database. And then item.created by equals request.user, which is always authenticated since we have this login decorator, item.save. And when that is done, we can just redirect the user back to the detail page of the item they just created. So return, redirect, pass in item:detail, and we need to set the primary key equals item.id, which is the item we just created. So I get a warning here now because I haven't imported redirect together from the Django shortcuts. And if it's not a post request, then it's a get request, and we can do it like this. So that is the whole new view. Perfect. So we can try it out now. If I go here now, select the category, furniture, chair, test, the description, blah blah, $200. And then I want to select an image. So I can take the chair there, submit, okay, enter a number, okay. Let me do that. Instead 200, maybe I should use a dot instead of a comma. Submit. The image attribute has no file associated with it. Okay, so that didn't work. Requested files, that's correct. Then form has the enc type multipart / form data. That is weird. Let me just try to log in here again with the admin user. Oops. Admin. Like that. And I just want to delete this here. Or I can set an chair 1 with it just so it's working. Now it's working here, but why didn't the image get uploaded? Okay, let me just try one more time. So new item, furniture, chair 2, 200, choose file, chair 2, submit. Okay, so now it was working. So I don't know what the error was because I haven't changed anything. But at least now it was working. Perfect. So that means that now we have the possibility to add items. Okay, so now I want to start building the dashboard where you can see your items, edit them, delete them, and similar. So let's start by creating a new app. So Python manage.py start app dashboard. Now we can add this to the settings file. Dashboard and save. Here I don't want any database tables, but I want a view. So if I just open up dashboard views.py, then I can begin by importing the item model. So from item.models import item, and I can import the login decorator. So from Django.contrib.auth.models import decorators import login required. And then I can create the view. Just begin with adding this decorator, def index, request, and then I want to get all of the items that you have created. So items equals item.objects.filter created by equals request.user. And then I want to render the template, render. return, of course. Render, pass in the request parameter, then set the template, which should be dashboard / index.html, and then here we can pass in the items and save. So then I can set up the template for this. I think it will be similar to the top here. So no, it will not, but it will be very similar to the front page, the beginning of the front page. So down to the box for the categories, let me just copy everything here and then create the folder, the templates, and then dashboard, and then the file for that, index.html. Paste this, and then I can just say and block. This can just be like it is, and the title here can be dashboard, and instead of saying newest items I can say my items, and then I can just save this. So now we have the view and the template. Then I just want to create a separate URLs file here. So urls.py, begin with importing from Django.urls import path, import all of the views from .import views, set up the app name to be dashboard, and then the URL patterns. Then I just want one here, path, empty, because I want to prefix this in the main URLs file, views.index, set the name to be index, and save. Then I just want to import this to the main URLs, so puddle/urls.py. I can add it here below the items or above, that doesn't matter. Path dashboard include dashboard.urls, and save. So if I now just open up base.html, I can activate this button here called dashboard, URL dashboard : index, and save. So then we can see if this is working now. Just refresh. Sorry, I need to run the server again. Refresh again, click dashboard, my items, and then I can see them here. Nice. So now we can continue to make it possible to delete your items. So I can create a view for this. So inside the dashboard, views.py, here I can say @login required, because you need to be logged in to delete your item. Def delete, pass in the request parameter, and the PK, which is the ID for the item we want to delete. Now we get the item from the database by saying item equals get object or 404. So we need to import this. We want to use the item model, and we want to get where the primary key is primary key from the URL, and where created by equals request.user. So we can't get objects that you haven't created yourself. And to delete it, you just say item.delete. And then we can redirect you back to the index page of the dashboard. And when I think about it, I actually want to have this in the item views instead. So just copy and remove it from there. Go to item views.py, paste it below here. And then we can redirect the user to the dashboard. So return redirect dashboard : index, like that. Then we can import it to the URLs and add it here. Just copy this, add delete at the end, views.delete, and name is also delete. So if I now go to the detail page, we need to do some changes here. So here where we show the price, I want to have a box telling it that it's your item, and that should go here below the description together with this contact seller. So here I can say if request.user equals item.createdBy. Then I know that you are the one who created this. Then I want to create a new div here. MT6 to get some space above. P-6 to get space inside the box. BG white and rounded-XL to get rounded corners. If you are not the one who owns the ad, then and only then will I show the button for contacting a seller. And if. And then in here we can say P, this is your item. And then I can have the delete button here. So href URL item : delete, pass in the item.id, which is the one you are visiting. Then we need to set some classes on this button. Inline block, margin top 6, px-6, py3, text lg, font semi-bold, bg red -500, so you know that it's a dangerous button to click, text white and rounded-XL. I will pass in delete here. So let's see if this is working now. I go back here, go into one of the items. Nice, this is your item, and delete, because now I'm logged in as the admin user. Okay, I just want to add an edit button here as well, so I have it. So I'll make a copy of this one, paste it, replace the title with edit, and the button here can be green instead. So teal 500. And the link can just be empty for now. But at least now I have these two buttons. Great. So let me try to delete this one by clicking this. Delete. And now it's gone from the list there. Nice. Okay, so now I want to make it possible to edit an item. So if I go to the forms.py inside the item folder, then I can make a copy of this. I could reuse this, but I want to have an extra field and I don't want the category here. So let me remove the category, remove it from the list here as well, and then rename this to edit item form. Plus I want to add one more field here, is sold, like the one we have in the models.py. This doesn't need any styling, so the form can just be like it is now. And then if I go to views.py, I can make a copy of the new view, paste it and rename it to edit. Here we need a primary key so we can get the correct item from the database. And I want to get it just like we do down here in the delete view. Here I do not want to use the new item form, I want to use the edit item form. And the same down here, edit item form. As you can see here, I need to import this. So let me scroll to the top where we import the new item form and also import the edit item form. So let me scroll down and then the error is now gone. We also need to do some other changes. First I need to I edit the title there. And here I do not need to do this. Here I can actually just say form.save because now the created by is already set. One more problem now is that if you try to go to this page, the form will be empty, so we need to pass in some data here. And to do that we can say instance equals item. And the next problem is that if we just try to save this, the form will get an error because the instance is not set on this one. So let me set it here as well. Instance equals item. So now everything here should be okay. So then I just need to update the URL, urls.py in the item folder. Make a copy of this, say edit, edit, and edit. The last step then is to find the detail page so we can update the URL. So URL item : edit and pass in item.id and save. So now this should work. So if I try to go to the teddy bear, edit, there you can see that I have it here, edited, and save. So teddy bear edited. That means that it was working, so you can now create, edit and delete items. Perfect. And now I want to work a little bit on the browse page, so we can search, filter on categories and similar. So let's begin with the view for this. You can just close all the files so it's easier for you to follow along. So if I open up item views.py, then I can have this on the top. So I like to have the list view and then the detail view and then more specified view below. So def items, or you can call it browse if you want to. Pass in the request parameter. Here I want to get all of the items from the database that is not sold. So items equals item.objects.filter is sold equals false. Then we can render the template, return, render, request, pass in item/items.html, and then we just need to pass in the items and save. So let me import this into the URLs file in the item folder. This can just be empty since the items is added in the main URLs file. Views.items and name items and save. So if I now open up base.html, we can update the URL here. URL item items, save. I can just close that one, so now we can test. I will get an error now because we have not created the template. So that is the next step. So let me go back to Visual Studio Code, create a new file, items.html. This should also extend the core/base.html file. You can set the title, block title, and here we can just call this items, or we can call it browse or search or whatever you want actually. And block, and then block content, close it and block. And then here I want this to be split in two, just like in the demo. So I need to add a grid here, div class pb-6, so we get some padding on the bottom of the screen here. Then we add a grid calls for gap 4. I can close this one, and then I want one to the left, which should be the sidebar where you can select the filter, search and similar. So div class call span-1, just close it, and in here should be the sidebar, and then you have the div class call span-3, close, and in here I want to list out the items just like on the front page. So if I open up index.html, I can make a copy of this one and just paste it in here and save. So let me try this now. So if I refresh, the template is there. We have the sidebar and then the list of items. Perfect. So then I can begin working with the sidebar here. I should maybe have a background here on this. Here, maybe if I just add it there, BG gray 100. Refresh, so then I get the white background on this and similar, which is a little bit better. So then the next step is to add the sidebar. So we can begin with adding a form method get and not post. Action should be URL items. That is the one we are on, but I like to do it like this now. Okay, add that one. And since this is a GET request, we do not need the CSRF token. And then first here we can add the input field for the query. Input name query, then the class w-full, py4 px6. I want this to be border and rounded -xl. You can set the type to be text and the value to be query. I will get this from the backend very soon. Set the placeholder to be find a bike, a chair, or a car, or whatever you want. And then below here I want to have a search button. So button class empty-2, so there's a space up to the input field, py4 px8 text lg bgteal 500 and text white and rounded -xl. Search. Close the button and the form is closed. Okay. So if I save now, go back and refresh, you should now have the search bar there. Nice. So let me just fix the backend for this as well, so that we get the query and we pass it into the front end when we have it. So at the top here we can say query equals request.get query. Default this to be empty. Now we can pass it into the front end as well, like that. So if I now try this, but Teddy, the search will not work, but you can see up here that Teddy is appended there, and we also have it in the form here. Nice. So let me try to filter the search as well, if there is any query. So below here we can say if query, then we know that the user has filled it out. Items equals items.filter, and then name I contains equals query. So if the name contains the query I insensitive, then the query will be filled out, or processed is probably more correct. So if I refresh now, you can see that only this is there. If I empty this, all of the items are there. But if I want to search in the description as well, I need to introduce something called queue. So let's import this from Django.db.models import queue. This makes it easier to search in multiple fields. And then in here I add the queue around this. So if it's in the name, or use a pipe here, queue the description I contains equals query. So if the title or the description contains it, it will be searched. Perfect. Great. So now that we have this, we can continue with the categories. First, we can get all of the categories from the database. So categories equals category.objects.all. So we need to import this up here, and we need to append this down here in the context. So now I can go back here, and then below the form I can loop through them and make it possible to click them. So I want to separate this a little bit by adding HR class my6, and then p class font semi bold categories p, and then I loop through them inside an unordered list for category in categories. Close the end4, and then in here I can say li class py2 px2 rounded -xl, and then in here I want to have a link. So href URL should be item colon items, and just close it like that, and then we can append the query. So query equals query from the form up here, but I also need to specify the category. Category equals category.id, which is the iteration we are on now. And then here we can say category.name. We close the link, and I can close the li and save. So if I now go back and refresh, you now have the categories showing here. Great. But if I now click this, nothing happens, and this is not showing as active either. So we can begin by making it possible to show as active. So in the class here, we can say if category.id equals category ID. I need to provide this from the backend. Then we say bg gray 200 and if. So this will not work now because we don't have access to this yet. So I need to go back to the views.py. Then I can say category ID equals request.get.get. Oops. Pass in category ID there. And then just default this to be 0 and save. So if I refresh now, it's still not working. Let me just try to inspect this. Okay, so that does not work. Maybe if I default it to no, sorry, I forgot to provide it down here, of course. And save. So refresh, and it's still not working. Maybe if I take it back to 0. Nope. Okay. So items. If the category.id equals category ID. Okay, remove category ID from there. So this should just be category, which is the name we have up here. So this is still not working. So if I just convert this to integer down here, set this to 0, save, and refresh. Now you can see this has a gray background color. Nice. So then I need to just make it possible to filter on the categories. So above here I can say if category ID, then I know that we have selected a category. Items equals items filter where category ID equals category ID and save. So let me refresh, and now it's only getting this. If I select clothes, it doesn't get anything. And toys, we get these two. Nice. So that is now working. Perfect. So the last thing I want to do here now is make it possible to clear the filters. So if I just go back to the template, make a copy of these two, and then say clear filters, and then in here I just want to add a simple button. So make a copy of the UL, LI, and then in here we have the button href, which can go to URL item:items, and this will then reset the filters. Reset or clear. Just want to add some classes, so this is more like a button. Class mt2 py-4 px8 inline block bg yellow 500 text lg and rounded -xl, and text can be white. So refresh, and then we have the clear filters. So if I click this now, the categories are cleared and this search is cleared. Perfect. So everything here is now working as it should. Great. So now I want to make it possible to communicate with each other. I want to make it possible for users to send messages to the owner of a product or an item. So we can begin by creating a new app. So stop the web server, say Python manage.py start app conversation, hit enter. Then we can register this in settings.py. We can close these other files. Add it here, conversation, and save. So when we have this now, we can create a new database model for this. So in models.py, I want to create a new model for the conversation. Class conversation, pass in models.model. And here I want a reference to the item, so we also need to import this from item.models import item, and item equals models.foreign key, pass in the item, and then we set the related name to conversations. And if we delete an item, I also want to delete all of the conversations. So here we say models.cascade. Great. And then I want to know who is the members of these conversations. So members equals models.many to many field, because the conversation needs to have multiple users, the owner and the one who is contacting you. Here I want to pass in the user, because the users object are going to be used. Set the related name to be conversations. So now I get a warning here because I haven't imported this. So we need to do that from django.contrib.auth.models import user. And then I want to know when this was created. Created at equals models.date time field. Pass in auto now add is true. And I also want to know when it was modified, so we can update an order by this. Modified at equals models.date time field. And here we need to use something called auto now equals true. So every time we save this object, this will be automatically updated. So let me add the class meta here, so we can set the ordering by default. Pass in minus modified at and save. But before we update the database, we can add one more table here. Class conversation message. Pass in models.model. I would love to just use message, but that would crash with some built-in functionality that Django has. So we can begin by adding a reference up to the conversation. Models.foreign key. Conversation. Related name is messages. And on delete, models.cascade. So if you delete an item, the conversation will be deleted and also the messages. So that makes it very easy. I need a field for the content of the message. Models.text field. And when it was created. So let me just copy this. And I want to know who created it. So created by equals models.foreign key. User related name can be created messages. And if you delete the user, also delete all of the messages. So models.cascade. Great. So now we need to update the database. Run the make migrations and then the migrate script. Then I can just run the server so we have it running. So before I do anything more, I want to open up the admin pie so we can register them in the admin interface. From .models import conversation and conversation message. admin.site.register conversation. Admin.site.register conversation message. So that's done. Nice. So then I want to create a new file here for the forms so we can have validation and similar. Forms.py. We can begin by importing the forms. So from Django import forms, and we need to import the conversation message model. From .models import conversation message, and then we create the form. Conversation message form. Pass in forms.model form. And then we can add the class meta. Set the model to be conversation message. The fields we want to use is only content. And then we can set up the widgets. So we get some nice styling. Only for the content field. Forms.text area. Atters. New dictionary. Class. wfull. py4 px6 rounded -xl, and we want to have a border on it. Great. So if I now save this, we can open up the views.py in the conversation app and create the first view here. So I want to have a separate view for new conversation. So when you click the contact seller, you will be sent to this page. So def new conversation, pass in request and the primary key. And the primary key here is for the item. And to make it easier to know this, maybe I should just call it item underscore primary key, just so I know that it's not for a conversation. And then I can get the item from the database, get object or 404 item, where the primary key is item primary key. And then I need to import these two here, so I can begin with the get object or 404, and from item.models import item. And then I want to check here. If you are the owner, then you should not be able to visit this page. So if item.created by equals request.user, sorry, I need two equal sign here, then just return redirect to dashboard : index, or you can redirect the user wherever you want, but I think this is a good place. You need to import this shortcut as well. And then I want to get all of the conversations connected to this item where you are a member. So conversations equals conversation dot objects dot filter item equals item, and then filter where members in, remember the double underscore, equals request.user.id. So what this is checking now is that if this ID is one of the members, then we can proceed. Okay, so now I get a new error here because I haven't imported this. So from .models import conversation, and I can also import the form we just created. So from .forms import conversation message form. And the reason why I want to do this here is I want to check if there already is a conversation with you and the owner, and in that case I want to redirect you to that conversation. So if conversations, then there is an actual conversation, so you can just pause it here for now, redirect to conversation, because we don't have that page yet. And then down here we can check if the form has been submitted. If request.method is post, then we can check the form by saying form equals conversation form, conversation message form, pass in request.post data, not post. And then if form.is valid and the contact field is filled out correctly, and we can create a new conversation. So conversation equals conversation.objects.create item equals item. So I want to do this before I create the message. And then we need to add you to the members list and the owner of the item to the members list. So conversation.members.add request.user and conversation.members.add item.created by, and then we save it, conversation.save. Then we can create the conversation message. Conversation message equals form.save and pass in the commit equals false, so we don't get error from the database. And then we need to set the reference to the conversation. Oops. So this just points up to this one, and who created it. So created by equals request.user. Now we can save this as well, and then we can redirect it back to the item. So return redirect item :detail, where primary key is item primary key. And if it's not a post request, then we just create an empty form. Form equals conversation message form. Then we can return and render the template. Return, render, request, pass in the template, which here should be conversation/new.html, and we can pass in the form like this. Save. So now I want to create a URLs file for this app as well. Oops, that's the wrong place. In the conversation app, urls.py. From Django, import path, and then the views. From .import views, and the app name should be conversation. Then it's the URL patterns path can be new, and here we want to pass in the integer called item primary key, and then we just say views.new conversation, and the name should be new. So then to link to this, we just say conversation:new. So let's import this to the main URLs file, which is in the puddle folder, path, inbox, or you can call it conversation if you want to do that. Include conversation.urls. Save and close that file. So now I want to create a template for this. So let's begin with the folder, templates, conversation, and then the template itself, new.html. And then again, I want to extend the base template. So extend core/base.html, set up the title, block title. Here we can say new conversation and block. Oops, and block content. Then we can add the title here, h1 class, oops, MB-6, and text 3XL, new conversation, close this one, and we can close the end block. Then I just want to fix the link to this page so we can test that everything is working. So let me just open up detail.html, and we can activate this button, URL conversation:new, and then the item ID. So if you now go into one of these, okay, you need to run, cannot import path from Django, from Django.urls import path. Okay, so now that is working. Refresh, and now I can see this since I'm owning this. But if I go into toy car and set CodeWithStein as the owner, just save, refresh. Now I can click contact seller, and then I've sent it to the new conversation page. So that is working. So now I just want to show the rest of this form, and I can copy this form from the item form page. This will be very similar. So let me just copy this entire form tag and paste it here. Here I don't need the multi-part because we're not going to send images, but the rest can be like it is. Maybe you can say send instead of submit. So save, go back and refresh, and then we have the content, which is the message itself. Perfect. So that means that now I could try to send this. Hello, CodeWithStein, I'm interested. Send. So now I sent it back here, which means that it was working. And if I refresh, then I should have the conversations here. We have one conversation between these two users for the toy car, and then the message which contains the hello CodeWithStein, I'm interested message. Great. So now I just want to set up the inbox page so we can list out all of the conversations that we have. So let me go back to views.py, and I think I also want to add the login required here before I forget it. So let me import this as well from Django.contrib.auth.decorators import login required. Then we can create the inbox view. At login required def inbox request, and then here I want to get all of the conversations that you are a member of, so I can actually just copy the statement from up here. This can be a conversation you have created or a suggestion that has been sent to you, just to remove the filter for the item. Then we can return and render the template. Return render request conversation slash inbox.html, and pass in the conversations for the template and save. So if I now import this into the URLs, I can just say path empty here, so the URL will just be inbox, and then views.inbox name is inbox. And if I open up base.html, I think I have a button for this. This one is inbox, URL, conversation, :inbox, save, and then go back here, refresh, click inbox, and then I get the template does not exist error. But that's great because it makes sense since I have not created it yet. So let me find a template I can copy a little bit. Okay, I can take this one and then create a new file, inbox.html, paste it, say inbox, and block, and save, refresh, and then it's there. Great. So then I just want to loop through all of the conversations that we have here. So below here, I say div class space -y6, space between the conversations, for conversation in conversations. I can close this, and for, and now we can have a link, href. It can be empty for now since we don't have a detail page. Class block. I don't think that is correct actually, maybe it's, I'm just messing up a little bit. And then we have a div for the image of the item. So div class p-6 flex, because I want this to be a flex container, bg gray 100 and rounded -xl. Close that one. And then I want the image to the left. So div class padding right can be set to 6. img-src conversation.item.image.url class w20 rounded-xl. So now set the width to be 20, and we have rounded corners on the image as well. So if I save now, we can try to see if this is working. Yes. Then I have the image for the toy car there. And then I want to show here who the member I'm talking to is and the item we are talking about. So here we can say div, just close it right under there. Then I want to loop through the members. So for member in conversation.members.all. So this is how you get all of the members when you use a many-to-many field. And for, and if the member is not you, then I want to show it here. So if member not equals request.user, and for, and then create a paragraph. So class p-class mb-4 strong member.username, close the strong, and then we can show when it was sent. So conversation dot modified at, and we know when the last message was sent. So close this one, and then below here we can show what the item is. So conversation.item.name, and save. So hopefully now I've done something wrong. Invalid block tag. So this should be and if refresh, and then we see who we are talking to, when the message was last sent, and the name of this item. Great. Next step now is to make it possible to click this conversation so we can see the detail page and make it possible to talk to each other. So let me just go to views.py, create a new view, add login required because you need to be logged in, def detail, request, and the primary key. And this primary key is for the conversation and not the item. So now we can get the conversation by getting all of the conversations you have first. So we just set this in not singular, not plural, .get, where primary key is primary key. And then we can just return this, return render request conversation /detail.html, and then we pass in the conversation, and save. Great. So before we do anything with the form here, I just want to create a template so that we have it. I think I can just copy all of this, create a new file, and save it as detail.html. And then for the title, we can say conversation with capital C. Same thing with H1 here. And I want to have this, and I want to have this, but here I want to say for message in conversation.messages.all. So we pass in the conversation here, and we get the messages because they are linked in this here. So go back to the detail page. Then I can remove the anchor tag because this is not going to link to anything. And then here I want to show the message. So here I do not need an image for each of these. So let me just remove everything in here. So I still want to have the padding, the flex, the rounded messages and similar. And then here I can create a new div and a paragraph p class mb-4. So we have some styling for the name, and then strong message dot created by dot username and when it was sent. So I need to close the strong pipe or at if you want that message dot created at. I can close that paragraph and I can show the message. So message.content. I can close that and save. So if I now go back, before I can test it, I need to add it to the URLs here. So path where int is named primary key. Then I can use the views.detail, name, detail. So if I now go to the inbox, I can update the URL here. URL conversation:detail. Pass in the conversation.id. And ID and primary key is always the same. So let me save that now. Refresh. And if I click it, I'm sent to the conversation. And here you can see the message. And if I have sent the message, I want this to be blue. And if you have sent the message, I want it to be gray. So let me just close the inbox, go back to detail. And then here, before we add the background, I can say if message.createdBy equals request.user. Then we say bg blue 100, else then it's gray. And save. So now this will be blue because I sent this message. Great. But let me make it so that it was the CodeWithStein who sent this. Refresh, and then it's gray. Okay, so now I want to add the form below here so I can send message back and talk to the other person. So below this div, I create a new form. So form method should be post action dot, which is the page we are on. Then we need to add the CSRF token, and we can generate or show the form here, form.sp. Then I need a button. I can just go to the sign up page and copy this like that, and we can close the form. And let me just rename this to send, since we are sending a message. So if I save now, go back and refresh, nothing happens except the button is showing because we are not having any forms there yet. So we need to go back to views.py and fix it here. First we can import, okay, we have imported it, but we can see if the form has been submitted. So if request.method equals post, then form equals conversation message form, and we need to pass in the request.post data. And if form.is valid, then we can create a new conversation message. So conversation message equals form.save, and we need to say commit equals false. And then we need to set a link up to this conversation. And we need to set who created it, or created by equals request.user, and then we save it. And to update the modified date of the conversation, we can just say conversation.save, since we have it already up here. And when that is done, we can redirect the user back to the conversation page. So return redirect conversation :detail. Set the primary key to be primary key, and else we just create an empty instance of this form and save. So if I now refresh, we can't see it yet because I forgot to add it down here. Form, save, refresh, and then we have it here. Hello back. Send. And now this is blue because I sent it. Nice. Let's just add some space between these. So class empty 6. Better. Okay, so now we have the conversation here and everything seems to be in order. Just want to fix the redirect that I did up here. Where is it? The new conversation. Yes, here, if there are any conversation, now we can now return you to that. So return redirect conversation :detail, and then we can pass in the primary key equals. We want to get the first one from this .first.id. I think it's the correct way to do this. Let me try. So if I just go back to browse, the toy car, contact seller, then I sent directly to the conversation page. Perfect. So now we have the possibility to create items. We can edit them, delete them, we can set them as sold. We can view our items here in the My Items section. We can go into them, edit them, delete them, everything is working. We have a conversation between the users and similar. So that is a wrap for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it and that it was able to follow along. If you want to keep practicing your Django skills, feel free to keep building on this project. You can add things like email verification, image galleries, an admin dashboard, and similar. If you have any questions about the code or anything, feel free to leave a comment below and I will answer as soon as I can.